So we're about to glue the plates on the boat. I definitely would recommend some disposable gloves. This stuff's pretty hardcore. These are 6mm gloves. The only reason I bring that up, it will actually eat through these gloves. I would recommend like something heavier than this. I started buying 10mm. That seems to work pretty good. So I would definitely pick some of those up. So the first thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna actually clean off the boat itself after it's been ground. There's dust and there's particles. We're gonna do the same thing with the plates. And then after that, we'll go ahead and put the glue down. You don't want to wipe the stickers off of this plate. Make sure all the little stuff's off. This product specifically, it's designed to have a working time that's 20 minutes at 75 degrees. So as the temperature rises, that working time is shorter, right? So if I was you, especially in the summertime, depending upon where you live, I would try to get this done in sort of say the 12 to 15 minute range. After that, it's gonna start to set up and cure. It's gonna be hard to move that plate around. Within 5 hours, it's at 70% strength, and within 24 hours, it's 100%. So what we do, if we start in the morning and we work our tail off and we get these plates glued on by lunchtime, we run the boat by the end of the day. Now I know it's not at 100% strength, but it's strong enough that you could do that. It is recommended that you just wait until the next day, run the boat the second day, but that is possible. So basically we're gonna take off this top. It is it's a two-part mixture. You're just simply going to screw this nozzle on. I highly recommend, because of the mixture and sort of the thickness of this, it's gonna wear your forearms out. So you're gonna want to cut part of this off. Everything up here is working perfectly. There's no issues. So we're just gonna keep on rolling. Now, what we want to do, we don't want to use this first part because it probably was just getting mixed. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that on there. It doesn't need to be a whole lot. So what I like to do is sort of a zigzag motion. And then I've just always done this is the process. Put 2 loops around the plate. What we want to do is we want to seal from the outside water penetration that could come through on any side. So we're completely sealing up this plate so that water is not getting it back there. So we're going to use, I would say you probably want to shoot for about 3/4 of a tube on these large plates. You're going to want to leave, obviously, a little bit for the back plates, and you're going to want to leave a little bit at the end to seal up any gaps that could exist after you take the straps off. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I got to flip this thing around so that the bow is facing forward, and then we're gonna simply line up our center of gravity line with the center of gravity marker here. So T, let's do this. I'm gonna feed this through here, and what I want you to do is I want you to start with the center strap. So I'm gonna hold this in place while you get that center strap tightened up. And we're not gonna go, we're just enough to kind of get it held on there. Okay, that's good. These straps, when you put them on, as best as you can, make sure that they're running straight up and down the plates. If you cross this strap, what it's gonna do when you tighten it, it's gonna pull that plate in the direction of whatever that strap is going. So make sure that they're nice and straight across there. What you should be watching for is this intersection. So here's the center of gravity line. It's got to be lined up perfectly here. And then the top of the plate is also lined. So you can almost imagine there's like this a crosshair, right? So for all you hunters out there, there's a crosshair right here. You want to make sure that's lined up. It's going to have the tendency to pull towards the buckle. So it's always going to go in the direction that you're strapping. It's going to squeeze out in some areas and maybe not as much in others. You know, mainly on the leading edge of the boat, this is where all that water pressure is going to be. And we just want to create a bead, make it nice and smooth, close it up. And so we're going to do We're gonna do that all the way around on this plate. You don't need near as much glue. Like, you don't have to go like super heavy and thick. Okay, so we've got the glue on here. And what I recommend is that with these small plates, they really get pulled in the direction of the ratchet strap. So this one's gonna go that way. What I've found is easiest is it pulls it about 1/4 inch down. So just put your starting plate of the starting place about 1/4 inch higher than where your lines are. Okay, so we're about to hang the foils, and before we do that, the first step is to set the angle of attack, right? So the angle of attack determines how much lift the hydrofoils generate for your boat. And for every boat, it's going to be a little bit different based upon the speed and the weight of the boat. And so what we've done is in the installation manual, what you're going to want to look at is you're going to want to look at the weight of the boat and then compare that to the speed of the boat. And that's going to tell you what angle this needs to be set. And so in this case, we know that it's a -1 degree angle of attack, so that's what we're going to set up. Now, let me explain the plate and how you actually change that angle. So there's two parts here. This is the torpedo. This is the torpedo plate. This plate, it only goes one direction on the boat. These holes have to line up on the back side of this plate. If you flip it over and you put this center hole in here, you'll notice it doesn't line up. Once you determine what the angle of attack needs to be, you are simply looking at these indicator lines here. So you can see we've got 0 degrees, it goes up to a +4 or a -4. It also shows an indicator of the bow versus the stern. So this blunt end here goes towards the bow. And basically what you're gonna do is we want it to be set at a -1 degree angle. So that means that this, the bow, as close as you can get it, should be pointing towards a -1. On this end, it's going to be a +1 because it rotates on this, right? So it'll be a +1 on the trailing edge side and a -1 on the leading edge side. When you set the angle of attack, that you consider which side of the boat you're working on. So for example, here on the left-hand side of the boat, this is the plate, and we've got a -1 degree. That was what the chart called for. So we just want to make sure that it's -1 for this left side, and that the same is true for the right side. It's got to also be a -1 degree angle of attack. So we just want to make sure that for both sides, we're consistent in what that angle is. If you have one side of the boat that is lifting and one side of the boat that's not lifting as much, you're gonna have a lopsided ride, right? So we just wanna make sure they're consistent, okay? So what we'll do now is we'll flip this over and we'll lock in the screws. So we do include blue Loctite. It is removable, but so the Loctite simply is just going to make sure that, you know, in vibration over the course of time, that the screws aren't going to come loose or back out. We can go attach these now to the large curved plate that's glued to the boat, and then we simply hang the foils with a pin that goes through there. That's it. Each one of these holes has a stamped number on it. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put this plate, the starting position is going to be in this number 1 hole position. The reason we have these holes is so that if you need to fine tune the system and you need to move the foils either forwards or backwards, this plate's glued on there, but we can simply pop off these screws and we can make these fine tune adjustments as necessary. Changing, you know, by this is 2.5 inches each. So by changing it by 2.5 inches, it actually makes a pretty considerable difference in terms of how the boat would ride. So, so we'll go ahead and we'll hang these up here. If you haven't worked with hardware like this, I would recommend don't tighten anything until you get all the screws in there. That will make it much easier. Once they're all in place, you can go ahead and lock it in.